So I gotta come on here and cook Marc Lamont Hill again, or as in some circles he's referred to as Marc Lamont Hill, about this tweet that he made on his page in response to this person right here. Now, in case y'all are unaware, and many of you are, the Ed Buck case or trial is going on currently right now, but they're keeping that way under wraps, and we know exactly why they're doing it. And people are saying, like, isn't more people talking about it? Why isn't more outrage considering the details surrounding his case? I mean, 2 guys were found dead in his apartment, not at the same time, but dead. Let's take out the fact that both of the men that they found in his apartment deceased were gay. Hell, we could take out the fact that both of them were black. The fact is that 2 men were found dead in his apartment. That's a problem. And he never got, they literally let him skate on by. It wasn't until a little bit later when they finally decided to make a move on this guy. But we all know why they did it, because he's a huge Democratic donor. He's like one of the top donors, as a matter of fact. And he's a white guy, and he's out in California, so he checked off all the boxes to be protected. So people were up in arms about it, but not as many as they should be. And this is where Marc Lamont comes into play. So he was responding to this tweet from this account called Pick and Choose. The person that said, "That's cool and all, but on BNC News, not black owned, y'all have about 10 videos on Bill Cosby in the past month, but not a single one on Ed Buck. I guess your boss won't allow you to speak on that platform." Exactly. BNC, or the Black News Channel as they call it, is not black owned. It is only black by name. Because we saw who owns it. It's some Arab guy who owns it. And then Mark replied with, "You can't imagine why I'd spend more time on a black news show talking about the biggest story in black America. First off, I don't think the whole thing with Bill Cosby was a big story in black America. It's just because it got inflated and they made it so. But okay. The release of Cosby, one of the most famous black people in American history. Then the case of far, and he put far in all caps, lesser known white Democratic operative Ed Buck." Let's really break down what he just said. And we can start from the beginning. I just wanted to read it, but we're going to break it down. "You can't imagine why I'd spend more time on a black news show talking about the biggest story in black America. We know why you spent time talking about it, because 1, you were wrong about everything that you said. 2, you can't walk back what you said. So instead of you apologizing, you double down on what you say. And 3, you're doing it for views and clicks. And the thing is, in Marc Lamont Hill, if you actually did a story about Ed Buck, you probably would get more views. Especially since it's a story that's not widely talked about in the media. As a matter of fact, the first time a lot of people heard about Ed Buck was from the new black media. And it wasn't that many in the new black media that talked about him then. And that was back in 2017. And I'm gonna pat my own self on the back. I was one of the few people that actually talked about him when this stuff started to first happen, back when the first victim was found dead, back in 2017, 4 years ago. Where were you at, Mark? You weren't talking about Bill Cosby. He wasn't even on a network as a regular, as far as I'm concerned, talking about much of anything. Then you could have had another chance to talk about the next victim that occurred the following year in 2018. Where were you at, Mark? Again, nowhere to be found. But when Bill Cosby comes, that's when you jump and you leap and you reach and you decide to do a whole narrative on Bill Cosby that has been filled with nothing but a bunch of lies from you and others. But we have all this stuff laid out about Ed Buck, where we know that this guy is a sick, sadistic freak, where dead bodies were actually found in his home while he was there. Like, this was a window of opportunity for you to have talked about this, but you chose not to, and you decided to continue talking about Cosby. And let's talk about Cosby, because from what I've heard, based on this Pick and Choose, they said you got 10 videos, about 10 videos on Bill Cosby on that BNC channel on YouTube. 10, about 10, meaning that's probably, it could be more than that. The last time you talked about Bill Cosby, as far as I know, is with Judge Joe Brown when he delivered you and served you up on a silver platter. And you still continue to talk about it. I'm like, the Bill Cosby thing, as far as we know, is done. It's over. As far as that chapter is, another chapter is about to open up where he's going to go after, well, we can hope, the people that did him wrong. And I hope you're one of them. Since you want to help lead the charge. Let's continue. He says, the release of Cosby, one of the most famous black people in American history. That right there, like I told you, goes back to my original point. He's doing this for views and clicks. He doesn't care. Listen, Marc Lamont Hill and many others don't care about these victims or these, well, they're not even victims, these allegations at this point. He only cares about the intention. He could care less. He says, then the case of far lesser known white Democratic operative Ed Buck. Far lesser known? Or is it far lesser known because you don't know who he is? Because many of us over on this side knew who Ed Buck was or is for the last 4 years since he first emerged on the scene with what he did. I mean, it's not his first emergence on the scene, but as far as like the bodies piling up, we knew about him. So you're about 4 years too late, Marc Lamont Hill, and you are more well connected than most of us are. So I'm trying to figure out how you don't know. And aren't you a Democrat yourself? See, that's why no one can take Mark seriously at all. Or him, Roly Poly, and so many others like them, we cannot take them seriously. They only go after who their paymasters tell them to go after and talk about. I bet you if you went on BNC's network channel right now, you probably wouldn't find one video about Ed Buck anywhere on their channel. Not one. I could speak it. You know what? I'm going to go on my phone right now. I'm on my phone right now. And I'm going to go and see if I can find anything about Ed Buck on their channel. Let me go right here. Scrolling. Scrolling some more. It's looking kind of dim right now. I mean, 2 days ago when I haven't seen anything about Ed Buck. I see a lot of entertainment stuff. And their views are very low, too, by the way. For a channel that has, how many subscribers do they have? For a channel that has 70,000 subscribers, their view count is very low. They can barely crack 1,000 views on a lot of their videos. I think the one where he was going back and forth with Judge Joe Brown might be their highest watched video, and they were probably banking off of that. Okay, I'm in 3 days ago, and it looks like my hunch was right. There is nothing on this black news channel, quote unquote, about Ed Buck. Nothing. They would talk about Kanye West, LeBron James. They were talking about critical race theory. They talked about Joe Biden. You know, the usual stuff that I would expect them to talk about. But nothing about Ed Buck. Far lesser known to you, Marc Lamont Hill. And I don't even think it's not even that you don't know who he is. It's that you don't want to talk about it because that's more egg on your face. But that's fine because we'll do what you fail to do and continue to fail to do. And he mentioned about him being a Democratic operative. Forgive me while I go and look up when he says Democratic operative. I'm guessing that's just someone who's just like a heavy Democratic donor or something like that. But Mark, aren't you a Democrat yourself? Like, really? Aren't you a Democrat yourself? Someone had replied to me and said it's interesting that he mentioned DNC operative, and that wasn't even part of the question. Now we know the rabbit hole is deeper. He could have just left that part out and just said Ed Buck. We already knew that he was a heavy Democratic donor, and we knew to who one of his biggest donations went to, and that was to Hillary Clinton. That's no surprise. But Marc Lamont Hill, you're supposed to be a quote unquote journalist, right? How do you not know who Ed Buck is? And those of us who are not in your position or bound by a contract knew who this guy was for years. But the thing is, I think he knows who he is, but because Ed Buck doesn't give him clicks and views, then, he wouldn't talk about him. But based on the views and stuff that I've seen on this Black News Network or Black News channel, you're not getting much clicks and views from the other stories as well. And this is a channel that has 70,000 plus subscribers. And they sometimes can't even barely crack 1,000 views. I think when I was scrolling through, their highest view count was like 6,800 something. And I had to scroll back a few days just to find that. Meanwhile, I have a channel that's almost at 40,000 subscribers, and I can do better views per video than they do. Even on a shadow banned channel. Yes, in case y'all didn't know, I think YouTube shadow banned my channel again, but like I said, it's quarterly. They do it like 4 times a year, and I guess this is number 3. I have 1 more to go, and I can still do better views. I can't take Marc Lamont Hill seriously, not with this tweet. Anything he said before this, anything he's going to say. He really lost me when he had that debate with the Grifton Princess talking about trans women can get pregnant. Now, it must be a cold day in hell when you say something that stumps not only myself, but even the Grifton Princess, who says a bunch of wild, outlandish things. And she had to actually set him straight. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I agree with her, but I guess a broke clock in her case is right once a day, because I refuse to give her any more credit. And I'm not even really trying to give her credit with this one, but it was common sense. So it's not really giving her credit. Like, anyone could have told him, like, Mark, these are still biologically born men. They cannot give birth. He's probably proud of that pregnant man emoji that's about to be rolled out in 2022. He probably gonna be like, oh my God, now I have something that kind of represents me. I can't with people like him. I can't. And it's a shame, because Marc Lamont Hill at one point was seen as a major Black intellectual who used to work at, I believe, Temple University. You got to ask yourself one question. Why isn't he there anymore? What did he say or do that got him removed from that position? And I would rather ask somebody who was there while he was there, instead of him telling me, because something tells me he will probably lie. Unless somebody can put down in the comments the reason as to why he's not at Temple anymore. Something tells me it's probably because he's been saying a bunch of ridiculous things like this, that thing about the trans women getting pregnant, and a whole bunch of whatever. But basically, all this tweet, to sum it all up, is in response to what this pick and choose person said, is I don't care about Ed Buck like that. He doesn't give me views. Talking about Bill Cosby over and over and over again until I'm blue in the face because I was wrong and I refuse to apologize for what I said, that's what gives me views. The best thing Marc Lamont Hill could have did was he could have just came on like a man and said he was wrong about what happened, and he apologized to Bill Cosby. Whether Bill Cosby accepts his apology or not is on Bill Cosby. If I was him, I would not accept it. And to be honest, even after Marc Lamont Hill said that, I still wouldn't even welcome him back with open arms, because he said and did so much stuff in that time period. He's not to be trusted. And like I said, he's not the only one. But what really got me is when he says, you can't imagine why I'd spend more time on a Black news show talking about the biggest story in Black America. In other words, why would I talk about anything else but that? What does Ed Buck have to do? Excuse me, both victims of Ed Buck were Black men that had just happened to be gay. There's your Black part right there, Mark. If you wanted to lean on anything Black, you could have leaned on the fact that both the victims were Black. There you go. Hell, he only leaned on Bill Cosby, and Bill Cosby was only one Black man, and most of the people that accused him of anything were white. Oh, maybe that's what it is. Mark, were you trying to throw the cape on? Was that the thing? You were trying to come in and play Captain Saberho? You can't play Captain Saber whatever in this case. He just gives me super simp vibes. That's just what I get from him. That's just me. That's just what I get. As a matter of fact, the last video I think they talked about that he talked about on this black news channel was about Vanessa Jones getting that $100 million from Jeff Bezos. I think that was the last thing I saw him do a video on, because they rotate people on there. But nothing about Ed Buck like I had assumed before I looked through their little roster and saw nothing there about him. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments.